Hey there, fellow wanderers. You find yourself surrounded by the stillness of a landscape draped in a heavy blanket of snow. The air is crisp and biting, teasing the edges of your breath with icy fingers. Darkness falls quickly here, painting the horizon in shades of deep indigo as stars push through the canvas of night like silent sentinels. The only sound is the faint whisper of the wind as it snakes through valleys and over mountains, a poignant symphony of the Wild West winter. It's here, among the stark beauty and penetrating cold, that the tales of survival begin. This is not a fairy tale. It's a testament to human grit and determination. Imagine trying to plant your feet in the dense snow, the crunch underfoot as you trudge cautiously forward. It's easy to romanticize the past, but the reality is far more nuanced. The Wild West wasn't just about shootouts or gold rushes. It was also about enduring bone, chilling temperatures, and finding a way to prevail. So before we dive deeper, I ask only this. If this kind of raw, unvarnished truth speaks to you, click like, hit subscribe, and leave a trace of yourself in the comments. Tell me your city, your time, your state of mind. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan blend with the wind of centuries past. Feel the chill of history seep into your bones as we journey into the wilderness, where even the air speaks of valiant struggles and profound sleeps. Let's begin. And remember, in medieval times, even survival was a luxury. The brutal cold of the Wild West was a formidable adversary, threatening to snap the breath from your lungs and turn the simplest of tasks into a battle of endurance. Picture yourself wearing layers of wool and fur, struggling to keep the frost from nipping at your cheeks, wishing perhaps for a hot beverage that, in this time and place, might just as well be a mirage. Yet here you are, surrounded by a vast landscape that argues with each breath against comfort and ease. The settlers and native tribes who braved these winters had to be as ingenious as they were resilient. Every decision mattered, from the type of shelter they constructed to how they rationed their precious supplies. In an environment where the seasons could determine one's fate, survival was an art, honed by years of adaptation and occasionally a stroke of luck. In the embrace of the wild, you learn to listen to nature's cues. The way trees groan under the weight of fresh snow, the sharpness of the wind's edge indicating impending storms. These were not just quaint observations, but crucial signals for survival. You'll hear tales of how the ancient peoples would tune into the behavior of animals, find shelter in their migrations, and predict the coming harshness of winter based on the thickness of a wolf's undercoat or the hoard of a squirrel. This blend of knowledge underscores the human capacity to not just endure, but to adapt and thrive. You begin to see, perhaps with a sense of awe and a touch of sarcasm in your smile, that while we fret over wearing matching socks, our predecessors were more concerned with how to stave off frostbite long enough to see the first signs of spring. As the cold seeps deeper into your metaphorical marrow, consider the nights spent huddled around a small fire, the only solace against endless dark. The pioneers didn't just survive against the landscape, they carved a life out of it. This is where the myths pale against the incredible reality of day-to-day existence. In a place where nature dictated the terms, people learned to dance to its rhythms, sometimes clumsily, more often gracefully. So let your mind wander to a time and place where life hung precariously close to the precipice of nature's whims. As you stew on the harsh beauty of it all, feel the slow embrace of sleep, with the knowledge that the stories of survival are not just about harshness, but also about the warmth of the human spirit and the ingenious dance of adaptation. The story continues without pause, without new beginnings. It flows like the silent snowflake gathering on a windowsill, like the soft whisper you almost heard carried by the wind. It's time now to immerse further, to let the rustle of history draw you slowly into slumber. As you journey deeper into the heart of the Wild West, the cold penetrates even further, and the concern shifts to how people manage to wrap themselves against it. The winter apparel of the era, far from being the chic fashion statements we're accustomed to today, was a masterpiece of practicality and resourcefulness. It was about finding any means possible to keep the biting freeze from your bones. Imagine standing in a small trading post, the smell of leather and candle wax mingling in the frozen air, as settlers bartered for whatever bits of fabric and fur could be scrounged together. The creativity of the people in these times was remarkable. Layers were key, and layering was almost an art form. Wool, known for its ability to stay warm even when wet, became a staple, while whatever fur could be hunted or traded, be it rabbit, beaver, or even buffalo, found its way into clothing. The garments may not have been aesthetically appealing by today's standards, but when the mercury drops below freezing, practicality trumps style faster than you can say fashion faux pas. You find yourself marveling at tales of undergarments, quilted with whatever scraps could be spared, thick trousers worn over multiple layers of leggings, and patchwork coats that told stories with every mismatched stitch. Some folks even stuffed their clothing with grass or newspaper for extra insulation, an early cousin to modern insulation, if you will, though you'd likely have to do some explaining at a contemporary dinner party. The quirky tidbit remains the use of buffalo robes, large, thick hides used like massive blankets to cover yourself, your family, or even thrash on the back of a wagon. It's no coincidence that these robes would often serve double duty as rugs during the warmer months. Nothing went to waste in a frontier life dictated by necessity. The iconic fur hat, often imagined atop a grizzled mountain man, served more than just a rugged aesthetic. It was a lifeline for preserving body heat, with flaps that could be tied under the chin or left loose in a capricious flirtation with the biting wind. These hats weren't just for show, as they shielded one's delicate ears from frostbite reality that historians still argue about whether it incurred lasting cultural shifts in dress code hierarchy. As you visualize these garments, consider those moments of humor and levity, though sometimes born of desperation. Imagine one settler turning to another. "Why, if my trousers get any thicker, I'll need another horse just to bear the weight." Laughter and jest were more than just entertainment. They were a way to defy the oppressive cold, to claim a small victory over the harsh realities. Even footwear revealed the ingenuity of survival. Boots were lined with felt or straw, sometimes reinforced with animal fur. And while you're envisioning this, imagine tying strips of cloth tightly around your boots, offering makeshift gaiters against the relentless assault of snow. No Gore-Tex or heated insoles, here just the faith that ingenuity and a bit of craftsmanship were enough to survive another season. Yet, even with these protective measures, there were days when nothing seemed to touch the chill. The wind would find its way through every small gap, and you had to constantly move, keep the blood flowing, twirl your toes like you're at a standing dance-off with Jack Frost himself. In such times, hope and fire were close companions, knitting warmth where none seemed possible. Though you're warmly ensconced in contemporary comforts, let this resonate a reminder of human ingenuity and resilience. Each layer, each patch, each fur was a triumph against the relentless cold, a testament that they would endure come what may. In the midst of this frozen tableau, as you visualize people cocooned in layers upon layers, feel the warmth of their resolve, and perhaps a gentle nudge toward the realization of how far survival has evolved. Moreover, as stories of the Old West unravel slowly in your mind, like the very fabric that kept these pioneers warm, allow the gentle weight of their resourcefulness to cradle you toward further revelations. With the layers of history wrapped around you, the narrative continues forward, weaving seamlessly into the next chapter of survival. As you continue further into the snowy expanses of the Wild West, the importance of shelter looms large. Finding protection against the biting winds and snow-laden skies was an essential part of survival. Imagine the familiar scene of a cabin, smoke curling from its chimney, surrounded by vast whiteness. The smell of wood smoke mixed with the fragrant resin of evergreen trees hints at the coziness within, even as the surrounding cold suggests a harsher reality. In those days, building a home that could withstand the elements was an exercise in ingenuity that might make modern architects pause. It all starts with choosing the right location. Settlers would often seek sheltered valleys or sites, protected by natural formations like rock outcroppings and dense woods, aiming for somewhere that could offer refuge from the ceaseless winds. Unlike the sprawling homes many enjoy today, these were compact structures, designed to maximize warmth with minimal resources. The classic log cabin, a favorite image conjured up when thinking about the Wild West, was more than just a rustic charm. It was the epitome of efficient design honed from necessity. Thick logs, stacked and notched, formed walls that braved the snow, and stopped most drafts. Mud or clay chinking was used between the logs, with moss or straw providing extra insulation. Of course, it wasn't a perfect seal, but when the north winds howled, it proved more than sufficient. The construction of these cabins was a social affair, often drawing in neighbors from miles away, bundled up in their winter garb, lending hands and shared stories as the structure took shape. There's a certain charm to imagine. So, how many settlers does it take to build a cabin? Inevitably followed by laughter thicker than even the mightiest log. And yet, there was variety in these shelters beyond the nostalgic log cabin. In some areas, especially those with fewer trees, settlers turned to sod houses, cutting thick sod bricks from the earth and stacking them like stone blocks. Despite their crude appearances, these sod homes were remarkably efficient, the dense earth providing a substantial barrier against winter's chill. If you stretch your imagination, you can picture families hunkering down in shelters that seem at odds with the expansive land outside. Within these walls, the inside became a bastion of warmth and community, flickering candlelight casting comforting shadows, the scent of a one-pot stew simmering over a small fire, the promise of another secured day. Amongst native tribes, various innovative shelters complemented their nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyles. Teepees, for instance, were designed to be quickly assembled and disassembled, their conical shapes intentional to prevent snow accumulation. The thick hide coverings, with smoke holes at the top to vent fires, made them not just practical, but astonishing examples of adaptive design. Caves, too, became unexpected sanctuaries. Their naturally insulated walls and ceilings held a stable temperature year-round, providing ample respite from the cold. Families who found refuge in caves might find a clear brook rushing nearby, freezing in motion, capturing a moment of suspended time as if nature herself had paused to watch their endurance with admiration. Yet, despite these warm refuges, it's important to remember that each shelter was just one piece of the puzzle. It was only a starting point, a base to return to after weathering the day's tasks. Those shelters, with their quaint yet sturdy construction, were a testimony to cooperation, resourcefulness, and survival, allowing folks to weather the darkest, coldest hours with collective hope. Just as those early inhabitants leaned on these shelters, allow their stories to wrap around you, offering solace from the chilly winds that once prowled the plains. Gather their tales like logs for your own fires. And as you turn the page to our story's continuation, feel the slow warmth seep into your bones, bridging winter's trials with the promise of a dawn always one night closer. As the frost settles like a thick, unyielding blanket over the Wild West, our thoughts turn naturally to sustenance, to the hearthstone where meals are prepared. In these times, the importance of food supplies cannot be overstated, for with each bite, the human spirit garnered the strength to face yet another frigid day. Imagine yourself in a small, dimly lit cabin, the aroma of curing meats and hearty stews wafting through the air, mingling with the earthy fragrance of root cellars. The crackle and pop of a wooden spoon, stirring a cast-iron pot, become a rhythm of life as essential as the ticking of a clock. In a landscape where supermarkets were non-existent, families relied heavily on what they could grow, hunt, or trade. During the warmer months, pioneering families worked with an almost feverish intensity. Gardens had to be planted, tended, and harvested. Rows of corn, beans, and squash sprung from the earth, a gift from a landscape often reluctant to yield its bounty. Preservation began almost immediately, with women and children busily canning fruits and vegetables, filling root cellars with jars of preserved produce that would light the dark days of winter with their brightly colored contents. It's easy to take for granted the simplicity of grabbing food off a shelf, but for those in the Wild West, every morsel represented hard-won labor and careful planning. Adjustments had to be made. Meals weren't just sustenance, they were strategic. Each ingredient was weighed not just by pounds, but by the labor invested and the endurance it promised in return. Meat played its part too, often taking center stage on the pioneer's plate. Hunting was both a necessity and a skill finely honed in the art of survival. Venison, buffalo, and rabbits, when available, provided protein and warmth. The moonlit nights could echo with distant howls, reminding settlers of the mighty predators lurking just beyond the tree line, waiting to reclaim their share of the feast. As the last embers dwindled in the cooking fire, so did the awareness of just how thinly balanced survival could be. Preservation techniques were simplistic, yet effective. Salting and smoking meats became rituals, transforming fresh cuts into jerky and ham that could withstand the test of time. The curing process was as much about flavor as it was about preparedness and ancestral knowledge, distilled into acts of survival. One quirky method involved placing eggs in a barrel of slaked lime, ensuring they kept for months on end. Just another reminder that necessity is often the mother of culinary innovation. A central topic among many kitchen tables was rationing, each meal portioned carefully, ensuring every family member received their due nourishment, but with a vigilant eye toward the future. The weighty decision of what to eat now versus what to save for the harsher days required a collective wisdom that only grew more acute as the nights lengthened. Despite the challenges, these times weren't without their moments of culinary levity. Can you picture a group of settlers around the fire, teasing one another that if they'd added any more corn to their stew, they'd be able to sow an entire field come spring? Or a tongue-in-cheek remark questioning if the stew was more of an adventure dish, since last week's mystery meat made a spontaneous appearance. In everything from garden to hearth, food was the heartbeat of survival, an unspoken promise of good days, and a shield against the not-so-good. It's a record of resourcefulness etched in fading recipes, lovingly passed from one generation to the next. So allow the subtle echoes of those kitchens, where each meal was both a celebration and a calculated act, to nourish the mindscape we build as we continue to delve deeper into the world of those who lived so steadfastly in the fiercest wilderness. With each bite and each story, the warmth grew, spreading resilience through the veins like the rich, nourishing broths simmering on stoves that, for a season, had defied the sterner dictates of nature. As their stories of survival nestled down among the roots of imagination, you feel the slow lull of satisfaction meld seamlessly into the narrative, much like the way the flavors of a good stew mingle to perfection. In the ever-changing tableau of the Wild West, transportation posed its own challenges, particularly when the landscape donned its icy garb. The harshness of winter demanded ingenuity, turning every journey into a test of endurance and wit. Picture yourself standing by a snow-covered trail, a fresh layer of powder softening each hoofprint and boot step, the cold air painting your breath in brief bursts of fog. When snow blanketed the trails, traditional methods of getting around quickly adapted to meet the demands of the frozen environment. Horses, stalwart companions to the frontiersmen, often needed a break from the deep snowdrifts that could mire even the most sure-footed steed. Enter the humble sled and its more adventurous cousin, the toboggan, a makeshift vehicle of necessity that often doubled as a conveyance of imagination for children sledding down hills. Settlers crafted these sleds from whatever materials were at hand, employing wood planks and animal hide, praying to every deity they knew that their hastily constructed vehicle would hold firm over distances. Flipping through memories and wild stories, imagine an enterprising soul out on the open ice who decides, in a stroke of brilliance broken only by the neighbor's good-humored laughter, to rig a sail onto his sled to catch the constant winds. The icy rivers themselves offered both an obstacle and an opportunity. When the rivers froze solid, they became wide, smooth pathways that cut through the landscape, often more reliable than snow-covered trails. It was as if nature had rolled out a white carpet, inviting travelers to glide freely, although not without caution, as the inevitable cracks and weak spots sometimes resulted in impromptu baths that most travelers preferred to avoid. Very often, Native American tribes whose ancestors had weathered centuries of winters innovated tools for winter travel, which settlers adapted as necessary. Snowshoes, wide and flat, to distribute weight over the snow, much like a clever dance partner, became essential for every winter wardrobe. They allowed movement across vast tracts of snow without sinking, turning treacherous journeys into brisk, resolute strides beneath the stark gaze of winter's sun. Historians still argue whether the origins of the first skis in North America arrived directly from European influence or were independently conceived by native tribes. Nonetheless, the wooden planks effectively transformed settlers into graceful creatures gliding through wintry woods with their ski poles doubling as walking sticks and, occasionally, impromptu weapons in a pinch. Brief bouts of jest punctuated the seriousness of these travels. Imagine one snowshoe-wearing settler comically commenting to another, "Why, if I keep this up, I may just leave tracks big enough to scare away old Grizzly Adams himself." The novelty of newfound speed or mobility often invited both laughter and cautionary tales of the neighbor who misjudged a descent and found himself airborne, ending not with a gentle sweep, but an undignified heap at the base. Yet, amid the challenges, there was a profound beauty in these journeys. Lunar light refracting off a world iced in white, turning familiar landscapes into strange, enchanting visions. The camaraderie of night travelers huddled around fires, sharing tales of home and friendship, forge emotional warmth out of frozen worlds. All the while, each journey was an adventure, a story leaning into the next step of our sojourn through the annals of survival. The transportation of people and goods became more than just a necessity. It became a testament to the boundless creativity of those who, day by day and mile by snowy mile, forged pathways from inhospitable quiet into bustling threads of connection that braided together the wild's broad tapestry. The tale unfolds, each step in the snow leaving an impression not only on the landscape but in the shared memories that ripple back through the ages with every crunch beneath your imaginative feet. As the daylight begins to wane, remember those who moved mountains, or at the very least eked across them on rickety sleds, promising that tomorrow's horizon might just be a degree warmer and with it, a little less relentless. With winter's breath upon your cheek, the journey continues. In the heart of the unforgiving Wild West, where the cold seeped into every nook and cranny, animals played a crucial role in the survival of those bravier, perhaps just stubborn enough to call this wilderness home. Imagine a solitary figure silhouetted against the snowy landscape, cloaked in layers of fur that rustle softly with each step. The scent of leather and smoke mingles with the crispness of the frozen air as you stand amid this scene of necessary symbiosis. The fur and hide of animals were not mere luxuries, they were lifelines. Each layer, each piece, held a story of survival, a sweet irony that the very creatures surviving the harsh winters often provided the settlers with means to do the very same. The relationship between humans and animals was complex, grounded in necessity, respect, and sometimes whimsy. Buffalo, with their shaggy coats and immense stature, were iconic figures of the plains, revered by native tribes and settlers alike. Their hides became essential protection against the winter's bite, transformed into coats, robes, and even makeshift walls to line cabins. The thick fur retained heat and repelled the chill, creating an insulating layer between the body and the ruthless elements. Light-hearted stories emerged from these practical endeavors. Imagine a settler admiring his buffalo hide coat, jesting to his neighbor, "If I get any warmer, I might start mooing." Such moments of humor interspersed the perpetual challenges of utilizing these resources with gratitude. Small game also played a pivotal role. Beaver pelts, with their water-resistant qualities, became highly prized. Along with raccoon and rabbit fur, they were fashioned into hats, mittens, and scarf staples of every winter wardrobe. These accessories lent themselves not just to warmth, but to a unique frontier fashion, each piece a testament to skill and creativity. Community gatherings often featured lively trade markets, where pelts exchanged hands amidst laughter, bargaining, and perhaps a little playful competition for the best deal. Leather was another vital asset, crafted from the hides of deer and elk. The toughness and durability of leather made it ideal for boots, belts, and protective gear, necessary for braving the uneven, frosty terrain. Picture yourself pulling on a pair of these handmade boots. Each creak and bend a promise of resilience and adventure. Beyond practical use, animals provided sustenance crucial for survival. As supplies dwindled through long winters, hunting became not just a skill, but an art form passed down through generations. Techniques varied by region, but each relied heavily on the deep understanding and respect for the animals they pursued. Historians still argue whether the deer populations in certain regions increased due to human hunting patterns or whether natural cycles dominated. Regardless, the close relationship between hunter and prey formed bonds with nature, rendered in myth and legend as much as in pelt and meat. And while survival in the cold was no laughing matter, nor was it uncommon for storytellers to spin yarns about harebrained hunting escapades, evoking smiles even in the bitterest of chills. Picture a group of hunters returning to camp, their stories of the big one that got away enhancing the warmth of their fire, each embellishment a testament to the bravery and, sometimes, the humor of survival. Critically, the usage of animal resources was guided by necessity and respect, especially among indigenous populations whose lives were intricately linked with the natural world. Their knowledge taught settlers vital lessons: to take only what was needed, to use every part, to waste nothing. This ethos didn't just ensure survival, it cultivated a profound connection to the land. As you curl up within the narrative's embrace, appreciate the harmonious dance played out against the wintry backdrop. Every pelt, every hide, was a tangible reminder of both the challenges and the connections that allowed humanity to grasp onto warmth against the unyielding winter. The tribute continues, entwining whispers of gratitude through the tapestry of tale, always moving forward, yet never losing sight of the enduring ties between human and nature. From within the furs that warmed them, the stories beckon you nearer, leading generously onward. As twilight settles over the vast expanse, the importance of firelight becomes undeniable in the wild, silent rhythm of the frosty frontier. Picture yourself huddled around a crackling campfire, the sharp aroma of burning pine mingling with the crisp, cold breeze that continually tests your resolve. The glow of the flames dances on the snow, casting long, flickering shadows that create a warm oasis in the winter's heart. Nothing defined a winter's survival quite like the ability to generate heat and light. Fire held a sacred place in the lives of settlers and travelers, not only as the source of warmth and cooking, but as the core of community gatherings. This elemental force could be both friend and rival. Nurturing it required a delicate balance of skill and respect. Imagine the preparations for a fire locating dry wood under layers of snow, meticulously gathering kindling, tinder, and logs that had resisted the insidious creep of moisture. The ritual of fire starting was both art and science, with settlers using flint, steel, and charcloth, when desperation demanded, resorting to a more primitive bow drill method gleaned from native practices. The grateful burst of flame from the tinder was often met with sighs of relief and quiet celebration, not unlike holding a tender ember of hope against the broader chill. Yet, the fires were not without their quirks and misadventures. Picture a settler crouched over a stubborn fire pit, muttering to themselves in the light-hearted frustration of failed sparks. Perhaps an exasperated jest is shared among gathered friends. "I'd swear this wood was wetter than a river otter's handshake." Laughter, gifted by the simple act of commiseration, became as vital as the fire's warmth itself. Once alight, fires became a hub cooking meals, making clothes warm to the touch and providing comfort against the long nights. The rich smell of stew mingling with the wood smoke was a sensory experience that anchored the soul in its familiar embrace. Days filled with hard labor culminated at the fireside, a place for warmth and a safe haven for tales spun into the lengthening eve. Candlelight, in its gentler illumination, played a complementary role indoors. When the howling winds threatened exhaustion, one could turn inward to a cozy corner of the cabin lit by flickering candles, wax sizzling slightly as it dripped onto the makeshift table below. Light sources beyond the reach of the fire were critical, ensuring that tasks were not left to the mercy of lit daylight alone. Colonial practices of dipping candles, reusing animal fat, and employing beeswax when available showcased yet another layer of resourcefulness. Historians still argue whether Bayberry wax candles were ever considered a real commodity among settlers, or just a fancy tale told by eager tradesmen. Yet, the theory alone evokes imaginations of soft lights, whispering stories more warmly than one can truly tell. Against the dark and cold, narratives naturally thrived around these firesides, nurtured by the gentle glow of light and the scents that hung in the air. Families recounted familiar stories, forming intergenerational tapestries woven with memory and myth. Community events, too, clustered around shared fear as a focal point for gatherings, celebrations, and the passing of long nights with songs, stories, and smiles. In the grand tale of survival, fire was both a muse and a guardian, each spark kindling the imagination as surely as it kept the cold at bay. Learn from these fires, Let their warmth seep into your imagination, leaving you hearthside, entranced by each sparkle's dance, as the stories blush with renewed vigor. Within your mind, permit them to braid together these fiery lessons, and feel the measured steps of this ongoing journey through history, much like footprints left lightly anew upon the snow. From the hypnotic embers, turn your gaze onward, for the light continues to crackle and beckon, illustrating the path richly toward the next story yet to be told. As the crackling fire slowly dies down to glowing embers, casting a gentle warmth, the true essence of survival in the Wild West emerges, the strength of community. Out on the frontier, where each day was a step into the unknown, people quickly learned that survival depended as much on collective efforts and shared resources as on individual tenacity. Imagine now standing in a well-trodden clearing, a gathering place where laughter and spirited voices rise amidst the chill, resonating with a resilient harmony that provides its own kind of warmth. Communal survival strategies were as varied as the landscapes that hosted them. Settlement life depended heavily on the mutual exchange of goods, labor, and support. Neighboring families formed alliances, pooling resources and skills in response to nature's unpredictability. A scheduled barn raising, for example, became a communal affair, delightful chaos of people, timber, and livestock, symphony conducted with hammers and good cheer. Communities were not just born of proximity, but of necessity. Those who lived through these harsh winters knew all too well that in the face of isolation and adversity, unity was key. They shared foods, remedies, tools, and stories, providing a woven net of culture and care that paid dividends beyond mere survival. It wasn't just about getting through, it was about living to tell the tales. Imagine the way neighbors would pile together their scarce resources to help a struggling family, turning gatherings into an opportunity to share wisdom, offer assistance, and fortify bonds of camaraderie. The aroma of freshly baked bread could float from one home to another, sending an inclusive invitation that required no ornate parchment, just the soft glow of hearthside hospitality. Even humor had a vital place by the fireside, bringing smiles to weary faces and a respite to burdened minds. Picture a community elder, in the midst of retelling how old Sheriff Cole found himself skidooing into a frozen creek while chasing his hat on a windy day. The chuckles and laughter that followed were themselves nourishing laughter, being a warm broth for the spirit in a world untamed. The division of labor also played an instrumental role. While men often ventured into the harsh terrains, hunting and trading, women orchestrated the home's continual hum, transforming rough-hewn shelters into places where warmth and often wisdom coalesced. Children, too, were woven into the fabric of daily life, their small hands assisting in gathering firewood, caring for younger siblings, or even learning rudimentary skills by watching their elders closely, all under the guise of playful apprenticeship. In the native tribes spread across the plains and mountains, communal living wasn't just a strategy, it was tradition. Here, the spirit of kinship echoed through every tipi circle or longhouse gathering. They shared not only the bounty of hunts, but the rich tapestry of oral traditions that bound generations together, fostering a culture deeply rooted in understanding both land and human bonds. In these collective moments, one can feel the shared pulse, a rhythm that carried them through their challenges with a measured grace. It was as if in joining hearts and hands, they encouraged the metaphoric fire of humanity to burn brightly, no matter the external chill. In that spirit of shared warmth and purpose, you joined these stories, wrapped in their camaraderie, like a well-worn quilt against the cold, each thread representing community resilience across the years. Within this circle of warmth and storytelling, feel the tales continue to weave through the cold silence, promising not just survival, but the enduring grace of shared experiences. Take from these timeless whispers, as the embers glow softly in your mind, and keep pace with the continuation of this journey. The threads of another chapter beckon, as stories like trails entwine, forever carrying us onward through the extraordinary endurance of those who faced the wildest of winters, not alone but together, until dawn's light promised a spring just over the horizon. As the soft glow of community fades with the turning evening, a new concern rises with the waning light. The spectre of winter ailments looms, carried on the sharp whip of the wind. Imagine yourself nestled in a modest abode, as winter's chill taps insistently at the frosted window panes. The interior air, fragrant with drying herbs and brewed concoctions, reminds you that even in such harsh conditions, the fight for health never ceased. Wintertime was prime ground for a host of illnesses, from common colds to the more foreboding spectre of frostbite and influenza. Those who braved the wild understood the critical importance of medicine, even if it came from the most humble beginnings. Without the convenience of today's pharmaceuticals, the people of the frontier turned to nature's bounty, relying heavily on knowledge gathered through collective wisdom and cultural exchange. Herbs and roots became the pioneer's apothecary, and their importance cannot be overstated. Echinacea, elderberries, and willow bark were utilized to ward off illness, relieve pain, and reduce fevers. The latter, recognized in some circles as nature's aspirin, was often brewed into teas that offered soothing relief on frostbitten nights. Spicy concoctions of ginger and honey soothed raw throats, their warm, sweet heat sliding like golden elixir, providing both comfort and cure. Then there were those quirks of frontier medicine that raise an eyebrow in today's scientifically steeped society. It was not uncommon to find cow chips or mustard plasters applied for chest congestion, or onion poultices thought to draw out the fever. While humour now tinges these practices, they were acts of hope a nurse's touch or a mother's reassurance, melding humour born of necessity with sheer force of will against the cold. "If it ain't broke, don't fix it," was often the unspoken mantra, leaving just enough room for headshakes and a hopeful smirk. Often discussed with continued debate among historians is the practice of bloodletting, a method vesting from ancient traditions, slowly being phased out, but lingering nonetheless in corners of a country old and wise. The notion that an imbalance of humours needed correcting held sway, though thankfully the advent of more progressive treatments soon edged out these misunderstood methods. Winter's cruel beauty demanded vigilance over frostbite, which could easily turn a day's chores into a dangerous predicament. The simple act of keeping extremities warm proved paramount, and remedies often included smearing exposed areas with animal fat or thick lard, prayers whispered gently through clenched teeth, shy glimpses of blue skin washed anew with sturdy resolve. The touch of frostbite etched ominously as both memory and a reminder of nature's fierce grasp. Communal knowledge became imperative, community healers rising not in authority, but in responsibility. With every tincture, salve, each careful extraction or soothing word shared, they offered treatments rooted in compassion and practicality. As their salves met the needy skin of the infirmed, tales spun about the healing properties of certain roots and the mysterious incantations associated with old-world remedies. While the mind often leaned towards practical resolve, those who called this land home never underestimated the power of hope and faith. A whispered prayer, or softly murmured chant, surrounded healing efforts not only with tried remedies, but with belief in each other and their tomorrows. Let these healing whispers, carried across time, soothe your own consciousness. The lessons of humble roots and resilient spirits remind us that woven between nights of fever and hope were moments of triumph against the winter's formidable hush. The narrative murmurs onward, granting a greater understanding of these long-ago whispers as fresh perspectives are gleaned from the stories stitched upon our consciousness. Draw upon these echoes of survival as they breathe new life into your imagination, promising further discovery and resilience with each step deeper into understanding. From the comforting folds of history, lift your eyes to the horizon of continued exploration, where the threads of our journey weave tightly yet forward to the next story, the next ember, and the reflections they inspire under the roof of an ageless sky. Amidst the vast, snow-covered expanses of the Wild West, understanding and predicting the capricious moods of winter weather was as much a craft as any homesteading skill. With no meteorologists or satellites to forecast the tempestuous conditions that loomed ahead, these early inhabitants relied on keen observation and time-honored methods passed down through generations. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast plain, your breath visible in the sharp air, scanning the horizon for subtle signs that could spell the difference between preparedness and surprise. Each dawn brought with it the need for an intuitive weather-reading session. The whisper of the wind seemed to carry notes of impending storms, while specific cloud formations foreshadowed how kinder cruel the sky intended to be. Old-timers, sage in their wisdom, would turn their gaze skyward, watching the way clouds moved, their color and formation acting as narrators of an unfolding play. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning, wasn't just an adage, it was deeply ingrained into their everyday reality. Animals, too, were watched intently, acting as involuntary oracles predicting the weather. The behavior of birds, the thickness of animal fur, and even the tricky antics of squirrels provided clues. Historians still argue whether these observations held any scientific credibility or were the product of anecdotal storytelling. However, a squirrel hurriedly gathering extra acorns was a sight that many wagged their tongues over in earnest debates about upcoming storms. The behavior of smoke rising from chimneys also served as a forecasting tool. If smoke settled low or blew erratically, it often foreshadowed the approach of severe weather, suggesting the gathering of supplies and shoring up could not leisurely be delayed. A bitter wind, with smoke curling flat along the ground, was as much a warning as any barometer. For those living in proximity to indigenous tribes, learning native techniques for weather prediction was invaluable. Traditional knowledge, deeply rooted in observation and experience, provided settlers with innovative insights, often grounded in harmony with the natural world. These teachings didn't rely heavily on academic theory, but rather on the respectful synergy between people, the land, and the skies above. While modern ears might chuckle at some frontier weather predictions, they carried weight in a time when the stakes included not just comfort, but survival itself. Picture a settler joking to his companions after a poor prediction. "Well, I knew my bunions were in tune with the wrong weather jig." Laughter. A respite marking yet another winter's lesson learned the hard way. Nonetheless, there's admiration for the men and women who, lacking the instruments and technology at our disposal today, leaned on instincts, signs, and stories woven deeply into the land's traditions. This form of art, at once humble and profound, was akin to painting a canvas where the subject wasn't just weather, but human tenacity itself. Understanding the environment this way wasn't merely about predicting the mere weather, it was about establishing a relationship with the land that sustained them, an age-old dialogue etched in memory and folklore. These prophecies, tinged with the ancients' whispers, formed a bridge between knowledge and imagination that might, at a moment's notice, transform a sunny morning into a battle against an unforeseen blizzard's embrace. In this space, let yourself be enfolded by generations of whispered insights. Imagine the hearthside discussions, punctuated by experience, as the wind howled its tune outside. Within these soft, comradely conversations lies a testament to the will to thrive, a celebration of resilient community ingenuity. As the wind continues its chatter over hills and valleys, carry forward the spirit of those who found nuance in every breeze and story in every snowfall. For even as history's gales seem to quiet, their gentle push moves us onward, forever weaving us into the unyielding dance of time itself, telling tales of survival and insight until horizons shine with new light. Through these shared impressions, the adventure continues, gently laying open the next path to be treasured and traveled. The shimmering, snow-covered landscape of the Wild West was home not just to the intrepid settlers and native tribes, but to a diverse array of wildlife that demanded constant vigilance. As you move through this frozen tableau, the presence of animals becomes both a promise of sustenance and a potential threat. The silent tread of a predator in the night, or the persistent chatter of smaller creatures that hint at impending weather shifts. Imagine a setting nestled within the dense woods, where the quiet crackle of a twig might announce the approach of a majestic elk, or, more fearsomely, a formidable bear. The presence of predators like wolves and mountain lions posed a real danger, especially when resources became scarce and the animals ventured closer to settlements. Their cries in the night, echoing through the icy air, served as both a marvel of nature's chorus and a stark reminder of nature's unyielding laws. Stories abound of close encounters, where the firelight flickers upon eyes peering back from the darkness, a duet of curiosity and caution. Throaty growls and trailing footfalls might precede a tense standoff, the outcome hanging on a whispered prayer or a quickly drawn rifle. These interactions often left indelible marks on the imaginations and memories of the pioneers, even as they cloaked themselves in brave retellings over campfire flickers. These tales were not simply about surviving encounters, but about respecting the wilderness hierarchy. The boom of a rifle echoed like a thunderclap, yet it remained an option of deferment. Natives and settlers alike knew that coexistence demanded understanding. Hunting was both art and science, appreciated not just as a rite of passage, but as a harmonious dance with both the hunted and the veiled hunter, limbs shivering like leaves caught in a forest breeze. In more whimsical moments, challenges from wildlife sparked humor between the lines of camaraderie. Picture a greenhorn's dismay at a raccoon raiding his camp, food strewn about as a settler grins. "The critters must reckon my stew's a masterpiece." Laughter echoed against the pressing gloom, created a bridge over which community spirit danced lightly. On the other hand, the native tribes displayed unparalleled expertise in navigating this wild kingdom. They intricately understood the tapestry of life shared with their four-legged neighbors in teachings of respect and balance. Each animal spirit held lessons that governed behavior and tradition. For them, encounters with wildlife provided guidance, augury, and reflection on one's place within the grand design. Among these narratives are accounts of wily crows believed to portend challenging hunts ahead, or owls marking change with their mysterious, spectral calls. Historians still argue whether the beliefs relating to such animal auguries were themselves practical observations adorned with storytelling embellishments, or whether these beliefs came first, shaping how animals were perceived and understood in daily life. Moreover, livestock, too, needed safeguarding against both climatic and predatory threats. Vigilant eyes were kept on enclosures and barns, reinforcing them against intrusion with an ongoing alertness akin to guardianship over a cherished legacy. Each bleat and bellow reminded them how close and how vital the animals sat to the fireside discussions of survival and prosperity. This acceptance of dangers, blended with mutual connection, weaves through a tapestry holding tales of survival in its threads. While wildlife in the Wild West may have posed constant challenges, it also presented opportunities for learning and cohabitation that required no less than full-hearted immersion into the spirit of nature. As you sit with these impressions, let them guide you deeper into the understanding of balance, where the paths of human and animal trod intertwined within the snow-clad wilderness. These stories sway like the grasping limbs of trees touched by the winter's breath, fostering reflection and resilience as you move forward, along the tracks of stories waiting ever patiently to converge once more with the promise of new discoveries beyond the horizon's gentle beckon. As the Wild West's unyielding cold brushed against the lives of its inhabitants, it became a catalyst for ingenuity, inspiring inventions born out of necessity. Picture yourself in a cozy workshop, the scent of sawdust and oil mixing with the sharp, cold air that creeps through every crack. Here, warmth wasn't just a measure against the chill outside, but a fertile ground for creativity. The demands of winter often stretched conventional tools and methods thin, prompting the people of the West to become inventors in their own right. They transformed mundane materials into instruments of survival, each innovation a testament to human resilience. In the shadows of the blacksmith's forge, where the clang of hammer on anvil rang out into the night, ideas took shape alongside the metalwork. Picture the creation of hand-powered augers crafted to break through deep ice for fishing purposes. These spiral wonders, boring through opaque lake surfaces, resemble modern ice augers and attest to the ordinary person's ingenuity facing extraordinary challenges. Imagine the chill on your face as you work diligently, the rhythmic motion both a physical exertion and a hypnotic dance against the biting atmosphere. Then there are the tales of impromptu heat sources, makeshift heaters fashioned from pots and coals, acting as imitation radiators that provided life-saving warmth to those huddled around them. A humble potbelly stove, its surfaces painted by the flame's glow, became both the heart and hearth in those snug, rough shelters. Victory over darkness and cold, one ember at a time. In the whimsical spirit of invention, one might even encounter a tale or two of settlers rigging up primitive snow shovels with boards and axe handles, a frontier precursor to the snowplows. Modern snow dwellers might take for granted, "Wish I'd thought of this sooner," a chuckling settler might say, brushing the icy clumps from his great beard, now sprinkled white. Communication, too, demanded innovation. Makeshift systems, using reflected light or semaphore-style flags, conveyed messages between isolated outposts, ingenious use of rudimentary methods to weather both physical distance and chilling separations. The indigenous tribes displayed resourcefulness honed through centuries, with storytelling of their own tools making notable marks on shared tin-key creativity. Their snowshoes transformed white wilderness into navigable streets, and advanced furs crafting formed garments that ensured survival no matter how fierce the storm. There was a seamless connection between understanding the landscape deeply and intricately to utilize its every nuance as a survival strategy. One particularly quirky adaptation involved the creation of snow glasses by some tribes, narrow slits carved in bone or wood to shield eyes from blinding snow glare while trekking across the illuminated landscapes. These precursors to modern sunglasses were simple yet sophisticated solutions to nature's challenges. They stood as elegant reminders of the bridge between necessity and invention. Historians still debate whether certain traps and sled designs were perfected independently by settlers or gleaned from the rich heritage of native craftsmanship, echoing stories whispered before writing first took quill to paper. And while these inventive exploits might lack the grandeur of grand technological breakthroughs, they resonate with a unique charm, intrigued pursuit of solutions that pause not for salary nor accolade, but for survival itself. Immerse yourself in these inventive musings, a slow-woven tapestry of brilliance spun from need and grit against a backdrop of frozen silence. Picture the smiles exchanged over a successful creation, a warmth born not of fire, but of achievementa cozy glow that lingers through the fields of time, lighting paths for new tales to take flight. As the firelight dances upon these imaginings, take heart in your place among these ongoing lessons of invention, where each step into the winter's embrace invites both challenge and creation. Let the narratives unfold now, extending kindred tendrils toward brighter discoveries, inscribed upon the purity of snow as onward we tread, deeper yet into the unexplored reaches of history's enduring dialogue. As the winter nights stretched long and the cold seemed endless, the settlers and natives of the Wild West found solace in something beyond the tangible. It lay in the realm of spirit and faith. In this world of raw survival, where daily life was a dance with the elements, belief in something greater provided warmth in the hearts, even when the fires went cold. Picture yourself in a humble cabin, a modest altar set against one wall, a candle flickering before it as a gentle reminder of hope and perseverance. Faith and spirituality were integral companions in this harsh landscape. With every new snowfall and each clearing storm, people saw reflections of divine intervention and fate's hands at play. Sunday meetings at makeshift churches served not only as religious fervor, but as critical gatherings for maintaining community morale. The sound of hymns filled the otherwise silent vistas, a melody of unity and fortitude that lifted spirits even as the temperature dropped. Each cabin or tipi became a temple of sorts, where whispered prayers and spoken gratitude nurtured unseen rays of warmth. Religious texts were treated almost as survival manuals, thick with lessons in patience, resilience, and the promise of spring, a form of solace in pages worn and mended over many readings. The biblical tales of endurance became anchors for those battling the wilderness's whims. Native tribes integrated spirituality with their daily life seamlessly. Each snowfall and change in the wind regarded as direct communication from spiritual realms. Their ceremonies, dances, and rituals, their profound connection to the land and its cycles represented more than tradition. They were expressions of symbiotic relationships with the earth. The sacred rhythms of drumming and song echoed into the crisp air, a testament to nature's omnipresence and the latent power found in honoring the connection. Historians still argue about the extent to which religious beliefs influenced migration patterns across the frontier of faith, propelled people into new territories, or if the territories themselves enhanced previously held beliefs. Nevertheless, the weight of prayer often rode alongside the weights of material goods, elevating comfort from the intangible depths of belief. Beyond faith lay the riches of folklore and superstition, which swirled through communities, shaping perceptions and responses to the unknown. Snowflakes were believed to carry spirits' whispers, and northern lights might be ancestors dancing across the sky, a celestial ballet promising that the world held more than just earth and cold. Yet stories of faith often carried a thread of humor. An amusing tale might circulate about a resourceful settler mishearing his clergyman and contributing nettles instead of nettles for a church project, raising laughter from within the community's shared heart. In this dance of faith and mirth was a balance that could steel communities against the darkest winter's night. The presence of belief, whether religious, spiritual, or combed through the musings of superstitions, was like an infusion of warmth and courage for the inhospitable days when mere sheltering wasn't enough. It rejuvenated frozen spirits, breathing into them a melody of perseverance, a symphony of things to come heard only by those willing to listen deeply. As the flickering candlelight creates patterns on cabin walls, its gentle flame illuminates more than shadow it lights the continuing journey of humanity toward its multitude of unknowns. Join now with those who looked beyond the tangible for endurance, following stories that guide our path forward into a world knit with tales of faith's resilience. Let these reflections intertwine with the candlelight warmth, extending tendrils into the next pages of our winter voyage. For Faith Wassand continues to be not just a refuge, but a beacon carving through the silence of time, illuminating the promise that we are never truly alone. As onward we journey into stories, waiting to be heartily lived and told anew. As you listen to the windswept tales of the western frontier, pause to acknowledge the silent strength that played a pivotal role in the survival of every community. The women who shaped the hearth and heart of the homestead. In a harsh world where survival wasn't just a word but a way of life, these women were the backbone as background figures, but as essential leaders in their own right. Picture yourself inside a bustling kitchen, the rhythm of a wooden spoon stirring in sync with the women's laughter and quiet determination. Against the backdrop of wintry landscapes, women's contributions were manifold and remarkable. Homemakers, teachers, healers, and artisans, they wore their many hats with resilience, often embodying the familial glue in each household. The cabin became their kingdom, a place of warmth and refuge, not only from the cold but from the struggles that life threw at them with unstinting regularity. The tasks they undertook were as varied as the landscapes themselves. They were the caretakers of the household, ensuring food was preserved, clothing mended, and children educated. Stories passed down about women deftly spinning stories around the fireside, their voices reassuring melodic reminders that even the coldest day could not freeze out learning or love. In their hands, the rugged world became manageable, with sweaters hewn from wool of cooperative sheep, stitched together with care, and meals of foraged and grown produce. The efforts they put into preparing Sunday dinners, bread-baking days, or candle-making sessions became informal but vastly important community events, exuding warmth that spread far beneath the cold exterior. When the harsh weather claimed its stake through illness, it was often the women who assumed the role of nurses, administering lovingly crafted herbs and homemade remedies. Armed with knowledge, often passed from mother to daughter, they possessed an innate strength that bore both life into the world and comfort in its sharpest despair. Yet, these interactions were not devoid of humor. Amidst the gravity of their task lay moments of Levitia comedic exchange over a garment patched so thoroughly it now served double duty as quilt and cloak, or a cheeky jest about how their bread might very well rival the formidable terrain for its hardness. Life's rhythm had its laugh track, ensuring spirits stayed buoyant, even as snow draped heavily over rooftops. The role of women extended beyond the domestic sphere. In times of migration, on trails toward new lands, they stood shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts, enduring the harsh elements with steadfast courage and spirit. Whether driving wagons or feeding children with one hand while guiding the oxen with the other, they were an integral part of every journey. Furthermore, women in native tribes held considerable influence. They were keepers of culture and tradition, storytellers who wove wisdom into every tale, educators who ensured the transfer of knowledge from generation to generation. Their voices echoed with authority in decision-making circles, offering perspectives that shaped communities. In this dance of life, historians still debate the extent of autonomy women exercised on the frontier versus their roles traditionally assumed in society. Nonetheless, their contributions were undeniable, transformed into the unseen architecture upon which communities relied. As exploration thrived into new territories, Women's spirits also carved enduring legacies into the very fabric of wilderness. Allow these impressions of quiet yet palpable strength to linger, the warmth of their endeavors as steady as the hearth they tended. Imagine the stories woven with laughter and wisdom, creating a fertile field from which new chapters of survival spring bright with determination and heart. Their narratives interlace with the continuing odyssey of the frontier, a resounding chorus promising resilience long after the snow recedes. As these stories coil about your senses, inviting reflection and understanding, the path ahead remains illumined by their light providing guidance and warmth through nature's ceaseless dance, and on to our next journey along history's unfolding trail. Amidst the challenges and ceaseless toil that marked life in the Wild West, children found a spark of warmth and a dash of joy in the simple pleasures and playful escapades woven into their everyday existence. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a snowy field, children's laughter rising above the whispering winds as they dash through the drifts, their ruddy cheeks and bright eyes defying the winter's chill. For these young pioneers, winter was not just a season of hardship, it was a time of adventure wrapped in layers of wool and boundless imagination. Children took to the frosted landscapes like small, bundled wanderers, exploring the edges of untamed realms. They created a vibrant world from the muted tones of winter, where every snowbank became a fortress, and every bare tree stretched its branches as a castle turret against the cerulean sky. The games they played were as resourceful as they were joyously, swinging far beyond mere pastime. Snowball fights became strategic campaigns with laughter as the ultimate weapon, each loosely packed snowball an opportunity for friendly rivalry and unexpected camaraderie. Skiers fashioned from wooden boards turned modest slopes into exhilarating races, though perhaps with more tumbling than triumph, leading to raucous laughter and soft landings in pillowy snow. Sledding, a favorite winter pastime, transformed snowy hills into fields of youthful glee. Simple sleds, crafted from wooden planks and anything they could spare, catapulted young adventurers down the slopes, squeals and shouts of delight echoing into the icy expanse. Imagine the exhilaration of the ride, the wind rushing past, leaving a trail of giggles and rosy excitement in its wake. Not to be left behind, the art of snow sculpting came alive amid the season's blank canvas. Children delighted in creating snowmen, perhaps reminiscent of tall sentinels watching over their sliding escapades, and they weren't immune to competitive streaks engaging in who could craft the most lifelike or outlandish creatures. These creations stood as frozen memories, outlined in soft shadows by the pale winter sun. Indoors, the play took on a different tenor. With the fires crackling softly in the hearths, storytelling became a favorite pastime, older siblings and parents weaving imaginative tales that stretched beyond the confines of the cabin walls into lands of fantasy and adventure. The narrative magic was boundless, transporting listeners while imbuing them with imaginations unbounded by winter's stern grip. Crafting toys from available materials was another pastime that engaged small hands eager to create. Dolls made from scraps of fabric, carved wooden animals, or bundled corn husks formed vibrant casts for theatrical plays of make-believe. It was through these simple creations that children practiced lessons of care and creativity, fostering enduring responsibilities nestled among laughter and wear. Just as importantly, these moments of play and discovery in the often harsh environment imparted valuable skills. Learning through play offered lessons in resilience, teamwork, and the infinite potential of imagination to thrive in adversity, a balance of gravity and gaiety upon which their world spun kindly. Historians still debate the extent to which such moments of childhood play mirrored the adulthood awaiting these children. Nonetheless, through simple acts of wonder and joy, they bridged the divide between youthful freedom and the responsibilities of the future, holding on to the present whimsy as if it were a handful of snowflakes, each moment precious and fleeting. So let these images of laughter and play spin a gentle warmth around you, melding into the tapestry of life on the frontier. Feel the snow-crunching pact of friendship wrapped in wintry exuberance, each game and laugh a note in the melody of invention thriving against the whispering chill. As the children's laughter fades into the gentle embrace of dusk, the story carries onward, through the frosted windows, and into the next chapter, where exploration and discovery beckon anew. With warmth in your heart and twinkle in your eye, Follow the trodden path they leave behind, a trail of playfulness forever lingering against the backdrop of history's enduring canvas. As the snow-covered hills recede behind you, imagine a bustling outpost at the intersection of trails and ideas, where traders and travelers alike converge amid the cold intensity of winter. The crisp air hums with the expectant chatter of exchange, where the clink of coins and the rustle of traded goods resonate like music. In a world draped in snow, trading was not just a transaction, it was a lifeline, mantra, and meeting point for stories and survival. Trading posts were hubs of activity and essential bridges spanning the vast, icy distances that separated communities. They served as crucial conduits of goods, information, and camaraderie. Picture the scene. Rough, hewn shelves, lined with necessities, fabrics, furs, and tool-each item, a testament not only to survival, but to the relationships spun across miles through common purpose. The exchange of goods extended beyond just sustenance. Salt, sugar, and coffee became precious commodities as winter stores dwindled, spices that seasoned existence and barterers' priorities alike. Devices like flint and steel, quilted clothing, and cooking utensils mingled with vibrant stories shared among those brought temporarily together, fostering an enduring spirit of community. Haggling was a formal dance, performed with diplomacy and charm. The personalities involved often transformed the process into an art form, negotiations enlivened by jest and knowing winks, refueling spirits even among the harsh wind and snow outside. A friendly banter could break loose, with merchants leaning in like stage actors, saying, "I swear, this cloak's so warm even the wind takes its leave." The indigenous tribes were not passive participants, but active, savvy traders, their traditional routes crisscrossing the hinterlands long before settlers arrived. Their intricate knowledge of the land and its offerings gave them leverage in trade, whether it was beaded moccasins or essential foodstuffs like dried corn and buffalo jerky. These exchanges weren't just mercantile, they were cultural, weaving economic necessity with cross-cultural understanding, a tapestry many historians point to as pivotal in the frontier narrative. At the heart of these interactions was adaptability, born out of mutual respect and need. Legends paint vivid symphony-like gatherings at trading fairs held upon lake shores or river bends, where items exchanged hands amidst the music of drumming and laughter's friendly crescendo. The mingling of languages and customs only seemed to amplify the shared human experience amidst the snow-flanked tranquility. The winter, though moving slower than a trickling stream beneath iced surfaces, lent a rhythm to trade itself. Caches of goods, stored in readiness for harsher seasons, tantalized settlers into protective preparedness. Possessions glinted like nuggets, carried over trails of uncertain fortunes until they reached hands that would clasp them with understanding, regard, and gratitude. Historians still debate the impact of these trading practices on westward movement show, the flow of goods influenced settlements, and whether these outposts served as more than just facilitators, but as catalysts. They stand testament to the resilient spirit that drove settlers to seek out connections, locating hope, friendship, and possibility, wrapped within even the most basic exchanges. With each trade and tale, the community strengthened, untangling distances, serving as touchstones of perseverance. Let this scene enfold you, tucking warmth and intricacy among the narratives of survival through community and interlinked web, extending from hearth to horizon, reminding one that, within exchange, life flourishes, even as winter weaves its white cloak across the land. Carry this spirit of trade upon your breath as you move forward through stories of endurance. With each exchange brimming in history's basket, the path grows brighter, and the discoveries richer a continued dialogue existing within the realm of shared journeys and whispered promises, ever embracing the shared thread of resilience that leads ever onward through time's unyielding embrace. Amid endless stretches of white-draped landscapes, the sturdy silhouette of a horse often emerges, mane lifted by the eager wind, a symbol of reliance and companionship in the Wild West. Picture yourself standing beside your trusted steed, its breath steaming in frosty bursts, warm flank, a contrast to the cold world enveloping you. Horses weren't just animals in this time, they were lifelines, partners yoked to the rhythm of survival. In the vast expanses of rugged terrain, horses were indispensable. These noble creatures carried settlers through dense forests, across frozen rivers, and over vast plains, their hoofbeats a steady cadence on the pioneer trail. In the chill of winter, they provided transportation beyond the limits of human endurance. Snow and ice may have cocooned the landscape, but horses, with their sure-footed determination, made navigation of these challenging environments possible. The bond between human and horse was one written in mutual respect, penned by countless trails and shared burdens. Settlers meticulously cared for their horses, ensuring their survival while preserving warmth in tack-filled barns. The scents of leather, hay, and even the horses themselves lingered in the air, a hushed reminder of partnership's root that dug deep into processes of life and trust. Essential horse care was paramount not just out of necessity, but of kindness. Ensuring hooves were clean, hay dry, and blankets snug was part of the winter vigilance. It was within these moments that settlers knew to trust the gentle wisdom carried by their steady steeds, whether navigating through tempestuous snowstorms or listening to the instinctive pauses a horse might make in the presence of unseen danger lurking in the mists. Horses were not merely conveyances of physical goods. They cradled the emotional weight of their riders' hopes, fears, and dreams, a bond deepening with each passing mile and each shared moment of wilderness solitude. For many, their times together became musings of heart and soul, watching the sun slip below the horizon, stars twinkling as a shared space unmarred by civilization's demands. The native tribes were long past masters of the equine arts, a natural affinity transforming horses into extensions of themselves. Theirs was a unique coalition of motion and grace, myriad skills transferring into cultural systems, poems written by pounding hooves on frozen steppe scholars, immersed in such musings, still debate the ethereal magic encapsulated in those collaborations. Trade routes thrived through such partnerships. Mail deliveries dashed between settlements along winter routes, less predictable for other conveyances. It was horseback found wings that connected far reaches, carrying correspondences long past the constraints of winter's fervent grasp, a bridge of understanding, stretched across decisions remaining open-ended, unrelenting lines of motion that rivaled time itself. Through tales both heartrending and inspirational, stories of horse and rider etched themselves timelessly into the pages of history. Mythic narratives flourish in stories of bravery and escape, legendary horses that galloped through blizzards to deliver life-saving aid, or calmed settlers' jittery hearts with their steadfast presence. Humor arises, too, amidst these relationships. Tall tales of chatty horses who seem to nod understanding during fireside conversations, or those casting skeptical glances at their human counterparts' attempts at improvised gear. In these playful exchanges, a bond forged amongst hours of shared trails ripples forth, highlighting warmth over the snow-laden silence. Root yourself in the vision of a world softened with snow, but strengthened through partnership. Let stories of hoofbeats lend whispers of memory and meaning, the tangible trust between human and beast, a recurring theme through time, a testament to the strength that lies in togetherness, cantering beyond the tracks they leave. As the day draws to a close, carry forward the enduring spirit glowing amidst these reflections. The partnership, embodied by horse and rider, continues to shine as an echo of unbreakable bonds guiding light and friendship through the mountains of time's history, ever onward toward welcoming page turns and adventures that stretch the borders of both heart and horizon alike. As the harsh winds of winter carried whispers of the outside world softening in their intensity, those isolated within their snug but solitary cabins faced a different kind of challenge. The solitude of winter wore heavy on the mind. This isolation, wrapped not in snow but in silence, tested the mettle of the pioneers and shaped their inner landscapes with as much influence as snowdrifts altered the physical world outside. Picture yourself seated near a window, frost blooming across the glass, eyes trained on the monotone horizon as introspection weaves quietly through long hours. In the desolate quiet, time shifted its weight. It stretched and contracted around days, marked not by the clock but by routine. Each cabin became a sanctuary, but also a fortress of thoughts, feelings, and sometimes the relentless itching familiarity of every wall within close confines. This isolation played tricks on the mind, inviting introspection but also fostering moments of ennui or longing for familiarity beyond what the window's vista provided. The psychological landscape transformed with each passing day of solitude. Loneliness sometimes coerced, whispers of homesickness into characters at the edge of shadowy thoughts. Historians still argue over the extent to which the harsh Occidental environment altered psychology directly or merely intensified pre-existing conditions, but there is no doubt that winter's stasis highlighted the challenge of maintaining mental well-being. People found solace in creativity and craft a necessity spurred by stillness. As the snow deepened outside, within a cabin, each practiced creation offered refuge. Carpentry projects, needlework, and writing acts were performed with mindful diligence, permitting thoughts to find expression in the whittling of wood or the prick of a needle into fabric. Within these quiet tasks, one could stave off the grasping fingers of isolation, reaffirming life through the steady rhythm of creation's heartbeat. For others, music became a cherished companion, banishing silence with notes like companions tapping out their reassuring company. While a simple banjo, violin, or harmonica might lack the grandeur of an orchestra, each pull and pause carved through the crystalline quiet, buoying spirits and bridging the space between hearts. Books, often scarce, turned homes into havens of borrowed ideas, and distant travels mirrored in the written word. Families would often gather around a tale, each page turn a shared journey, a transient escape collectively embraced, clinging to narrative threads wound tightly around crackling fires. Solitude also offered moments for thoughtful reflection or spiritual growth. Prayer and meditation nourished the spirit, while providing an opportunity to forge connections with the unseen, a reminder of presence beyond the physical limits of wilderness. Connection was also sought through correspondence, as letters carried whispers of activity far beyond the reach of frost-stiffened hands. Humor lent its buoyancy to these times. Thought I might be talking to myself, till I started arguing back. Someone might quip, drawing shared chuckles a light note upon the moments stretched by contemplation's tendrils. These shared, good-humored confidences wrapped warmth around the absurdities sometimes born of extended solitude. The isolation wasn't merely a challenge for the solitary pioneer or settler. Entire families grappled with the intricacies of close and constant contact, navigating the ebb and flow of daily life with both friction and fondness. It was a time when bonds were forged in the icy crucible of shared adversities, testing and affirming the ties that held kin together. As you join this winter tapestry, let the stories interweave with understanding, catching echoes of introspection and endurance vibrating softly across time's expanse. Through shared whispers of thought, find resilience mirrored in reflections that brighten hearts against the pall of solitude. Continue forward from this space of silent resilience, nurturing ties and stories that light inner worlds with ember glow. From within, extend this narrative onward, seeking new tales to illuminate the quiet hush beyond the cabin's gilded frost, trusting the knowledge that life's richness thrives even in silence's embrace, promising paths onward and adventure anew. Amidst the sprawling expanse of the Wild West, where every breath seemed to crystallize in the frigid air, people sought solace and strength within the architecture that not only sheltered them, but defined their resolve against harsh winters. Imagine yourself stepping into a carefully constructed cabin, the solid warmth of wooden walls enveloping you as a soft antidote to the harsh conditions outside. These structures were more than just a refuge from the elements. They were testament to ingenuity and resilience, etched with the knowledge and sweat of their creators. In this world of unforgiving cold, the design of a building could mean the difference between comfort and calamity. The settlers weren't just building homes, they were crafting lifelines. The key was in the construction, taking advantage of natural insulating properties and materials that the environment itself offered. The classic log cabin, with its interlocking timbers snugly set, provided a solid defense. The chinking between logs, a mixture of mud, clay, moss, or straw, filled every gap, sealing warmth inside, while pressing chilly drafts to wander elsewhere. Historians still argue about whether the early American log cabin designs were borrowed technologies brought across the Atlantic, or an inspired evolution from indigenous structures observed by early settlers. Regardless, their simplicity and efficiency became quintessential symbols of frontier life, fashioned for survival and steeped in practicality. Other structures, such as sod houses, which appeared humbly on prairies where timber proved scarce, utilized the earth's own bounty as protection. Thickly cut sod bricks formed walls that absorbed and retained heat, boasting of a natural insulation that kept the inside inviting when the external world seemed severe. Though not quite visually arresting, sod homes nevertheless secured a snug warmth that couldn't be rivaled by bare timber alone. Native American tribes crafted their shelters with an intuitive alignment with nature's rhythms, each tipi or longhouse perfectly suited to its locale. Teepees, elegantly designed with furs and hides stretched over wooden poles, were not only portable but conformed to the warmth-conserving principles tested by centuries. Whether inviting the sun in summer or maintaining heat through gathered fires in winter, these shelters demonstrated an eco-symbiotic design uniquely attuned to the season's demands. The roofing of structures represented a point of critical intervention against winter. Sloping steeply, roofs discouraged snow buildup, preventing collapse under accumulation's weight and guiding meltwater away from the perimeter. A potbelly stove within became the hearth's heart, its iron belly crackling as embers glowed in harmony with the home's warmth. This was more than just a piece of metal, it was the embodiment of survival's art. The use of natural light was another architectural consideration, allowing windows that trapped daylight's scarce warmth, while thick curtains drew across them during frigid nights to insulate interiors from creeping chill. The interplay between light and shadow created dancing patterns that, rightly framed, reflected the rhythm of passing seasons and life within. With every partnership between human hand and nature's offerings, the pioneers of the West inscribed a legacy. Each design adjustment drawn from the need to outwit and integrate with the environment. Stories emerge from these shelters, of families gathered around common tables, laughter threading through rafters as wind whimpered its entreaties at the door. In the cozy confines of this human sanctuary, humor arose from circumstances, a playful comment on layers of clothing hung overhead to dry, stitching smiles as warm as any quilted wrap. If these ceilings get any lower, I might have to stoop just to dodge a dangling sock. Spoke to a practicality, imbued world where joy swirled with utility like snowflakes in a frosty breeze. Let these stories arc toward you, their essence manifested in cozy corners and echoes of design choices across time's breadth. The ingenuity embedded in each architectural element resonates with warmth and resilience, reminding us of the indomitable spirit woven into their timbers. From the comfort of these hearths and frameworks, turn your gaze to the horizon anew. The narrative continues, with each tale softly building upon the next, inviting you to journey onward, where more stories await discovery, lined with the enduring architecture of survival, hearth's warmth promising guidance and encouragement through every new trail's twist and turn. As the story of survival unfolds across the frozen frontier, another narrative, more ancient and deeply resonant, threads through the heart of the Wild West, the tale of nomadic tribes who have thrived for centuries amid these vast, indifferent landscapes. Imagine yourself on the move, with the world shifting as the seasons dictate, the chill of winter offset by the glow of firelight. Each camp a temporary embrace against nature's majestic severity. The nomadic lifestyle, defined by movement and adaptation, is a song of harmony sung with the land's rhythms. For many tribes across this sweeping wilderness, such as the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Apache, life was intricately woven with the environment's flow. Guided by the stars and the earth's sagas, they defined existence through patterns of migration that spoke of both instinct and sacred tradition. As winter tightened its grip, these groups relied on generations of accumulated wisdom to choose their paths. They moved in response to animal migrations, weather changes, and the subtle signs that turned the untamed wilds into a comprehensible, living map. Their movements weren't random. They were a dance deeply in sync with the universe. Some historians still debate whether these migrations were primarily survival-driven or spiritually motivated, as if separate threads could ever weave through the same loom. The crafting of shelters reflected this dynamic relationship. When the tribe came to rest, the camp was a flurry of cooperative activity. Creating robust typists from buffalo hide, stretched over wooden frames, was both a communal and spiritual exercise. Built with an awareness that the structure had to withstand not just the physical elements, but hold a sense of continuity, a tribute to ancestors, and a promise to descendants. Stories echo between the aged poles, the memory of revered elders and youthful apprentices tucking new skills into their eager minds. Around communal fires, storytelling sessions became vibrant retellings of histories and aspirations woven into the fabric of shared evenings. Elders' voices rose against the whisper of snow, narrating legends through which younger faces learned of strength, reverence, and the binding power of community. In these gatherings, humor budded like frost flowers upon branches. Playful tales about coyote and trickster spirits reflected on life's whimsical misadventures and intricate puzzles, bringing welcome relief and communal laughter, a salve against the occasional sting of winter's claws. The merriment rolled from shared mouths like chimes upon a soft wind, nourishing an unbreakable bond, embracing life as a shared, joyous journey. Subsistence reflected unity. The nomadic tribe's diets metamorphosed with the seasons, with winter marking a shift towards robust hunting and shared meals that celebrated sustainability. Buffalo, deer, and smaller game seasoned their campfires, while preserved stores from abundant months ensured that even winter's heart carried echoes of spring's bounty. Children experienced life as an adventurous classroom where play merged seamlessly with learning. They participated alongside elders, absorbing skills through hands-on practice as apprentices in life's wide, wondrous tapestry. Games honed their senses, preparing them for the future roles they would embrace with joy and responsibility. Yet, this way of life thrived on an intricate balance, threatened by the encroachment of settlers and the uprooting claims of expansionism. Through challenges, the tribes clung fiercely to their bonds, revering art, dance, and ritual as tandems, strengthening both resilience and identity. The grandeur of ritual drumming mirrored the heartbeat of Earth itself, pulsing life into frozen landscapes, asserting presence through every thunderous beat. Let these tales breathe into the essence of your understanding, a narrative not told through distance, but through the connections that bind people to their lands, and the lessons imparted through the gentle, ever-moving embrace of earth and sky. With this understanding filling the spaces between heartbeats, follow the trail of interwoven stories that call us toward deeper appreciation. Respectful step along paths trodden tenderly, the wisdom gleaned but a guiding light toward new encounters, and past horizons untamed yet in the wild's embrace. For each shared step accompanies tales of kinship and nomadic truth, the earth's hum beneath echoing a symphony of life, resilient and steadfast. As we venture further into the tales of survival on the Wild West frontier, the delicate dance between life and death becomes evident, marked by stories tinged with both suspense and triumph. Imagine yourself, face to the wind, each breath mingling fragility with fortitude, as you witness the stark realities that framed the lives of those who dared carve existence out of a raw and often hostile wilderness. In this sweeping tableau, where vast prairies and towering mountains stood as sentinels to human ambition, the narratives are filled with moments where life balanced imperceptibly close to its edge. Each day presented new challenges, whether from the unpredictability of harsh winters or the sudden wrath of an untamed wilderness, each encounter promising to test the limits of courage and ingenuity. One might picture a lone trapper traveling through the biting wind, well aware of the thin ice that lay beneath the snow, every step calculated with the precision of instinct honed over years. There were close calls that left breathless silences in their wake, moments where a misstep could spell disastrous snowy drift concealing a perilous fall, or a biting wind closing in faster than one could outrun. Scenes of men caught in avalanches, saved by luck and the sheer will to claw back to light, narrate the fragile strength knitted between survival's seams. For settlers and indigenous tribes alike, navigating these natural perils required a profound understanding of the earth. This knowledge, a precious gift passed across generations, was the key to unlocking survival amidst the wild's harsh beauty. A lone tree, bent by repeated winds, could transform into life-saving shelter. A shallow creek doubled as a hidden corridor leading to safety. Humanity's capacity for innovation never shines brighter than when pushed against the wall of nature's indifference. Improvised rope bridges strung across treacherous chasms, or shelters crafted from driftwood against icy gusts, bore witness to an insistent will to endure. Each inventive move reflected the ability to reimagine adversity as opportunity, a critical survival skill, exchanged in whispered stories by flickering firesides. The stories of near misses and miraculous survivals abound, not merely as anecdotes, but as parables of resilience. These tales, when told among friends or family, inspired hope and laughter amidst the fraught realities of daily existence. Picture settlers gathered around a fire, sharing accounts of the time Ma Johnson supposedly scared a prowling bear away with nothing more than her infamous stew-an inside joke that added a touch of levity to the day's tension. Humor planted roots in even the darkest moments, blossoming warmth in the shadow of death's silent potential. A light-hearted jest might recount the time Jake, half buried in snow and resolve, emerged victorious, though not before declaring the hill slippery enough to express, "Ship a cow." Such stories knit bonds between people, reminders of shared endurance and solidarity against the unknown. Historians still debate whether such stories were emboldened for morale or faith, yet their power lay undeniable salve, soothing the ever-present uncertainty life could hurl with winter's sharp breath. They underlined an undeniable truth. Survival in the Wild West pivoted on the community, and the shared experience forged bonds that turned coexistence into kinship. Let these impressions of close calls sway warmly around you, making visible the threads of resilience intertwined with daily life. Feel the cadence of footsteps traced over paths less certain, leading ever forward against the haunting backdrop of both wild radiance and risk. The tale's torch continues to pass hands, illuminating the next stretch of trail with stories reflecting the resilience where life's tenacity gleams fiercely, shining brighter for its proximity to shadow. As with every telling, the narrative moves forward, ensuring the footsteps of those who dared venture before us echo strongly into future chapters yet unwritten, waiting to be discovered, nurtured, and undaunted by time's patient, lingering presence. Within the vast expanse of the Wild West, cultural exchanges and technological adaptations became as essential as the very vibrant tapestry woven from diverse threads, each one spinning narrative gold against the stark, snowy backdrop. Imagine yourself amidst a campfire, the laughter and dialogue a blend of languages and customs, intertwining seamlessly as snowflakes twirl lazily to their earthbound repose. As settlers journeyed into these new territories, they encountered indigenous tribes whose ways of life had been cultivated over millennia. This meeting of worlds was not just a challenge to survive the physical wilderness, but also an opportunity to enrich understanding through shared wisdom and cultural exchange. The knowledge that passed between these groups laid the foundations for adaptive survival techniques that were crucial for enduring the unforgiving winters. Teepees and other indigenous shelters offered ingenious alternatives to settlers unaccustomed to the cold. Their portability and ability to withstand severe weather conditions caught the settlers' attention, inspiring floor plans that echoed across subsequent Western architecture. Some historians still discuss whether these influences were seamlessly integrated or met with resistance, yet the resultant evolution of dwellings spoke to necessity transcending cultural barriers. Beyond architecture, shared agricultural techniques reshaped the settlers' relationship with the land. Indigenous know-how in managing and preserving food sources, including dried meats and fruit concentrates, found eager audiences among pioneers. This knowledge provided a lifeline, turning barren winterscapes into provision-laden preparations, ensuring survival through times of scarcity. Likewise, the introduction of European tools and methods found favor with some tribes who saw promise in these new technologies. The exchange was not unidirectional, nor was it just about physical goods, it was about ideas, fostering innovation that enabled both settlers and natives to thrive collectively. Through the melding of traditional crafts and newfound techniques, communities discovered novel ways to coexist, a form of cultural alchemy bringing forth solutions that neither group might have developed alone. Deep in the wilderness, stories of these exchanges became threads in the fabric of everyday life. Shared meals turned into subtle dances of tradition and adaptation, where maize met flour and buffalo mingled with borrowed seasonings, creating culinary hybridizations that lingered in memory and taste. Through the warmth of the fire, cracked jokes found fresh audience and meaning, spanning any linguistic chasm. It's within these gatherings that humor often sparkled, relished moments, turned anecdotal treasures among mixed company campfires. Picture a seasoned trapper grinning across the flames at a tribal elder after realizing their mismatched fishing lures somehow spawned a bounty of trout, with laughter rolling like springtime creeks. Such moments didn't just lighten heavy hearts. They forged bridges built upon shared human experience. These exchanges undeniably shaped the West, altering the course of relationships and refining the lens through which communities viewed one another. The enduring legacy is written not just in artifacts and treaties, but within language, cuisine, and tradition that transcends a single culture, enhancing the mosaic we continue to explore today. In the quiet moments following these meetings, let the narratives weave themselves into your own consciousness, offering tales of harmony and understanding poised against winter's quietude. These stories persist as living monuments to cross-cultural dialogue resolved not just in the past, but reverberating into contexts yet to be discovered. As you journey with these lessons stitched into history, may you find within you the wisdom of shared humanity glowing strongly enough to illuminate the path forward. With stories intertwining, follow the footprints that lead us along the continuum of cultural connections, promising further horizons where stories anticipate our listening ears and yearning hearts, ever ready to be part of the great enfolding narrative of time. In the snow-blanketed vistas of the Wild West, the economy didn't hibernate with the winter's chill. Instead, it evolved, shaping and being shaped by the harsh demands of the season. As you imagine yourself walking the frozen streets of a frontier town or the slippery paths of a remote village, the hustle and bustle of trading, bargaining, and enterprise create a lively counterpoint to the stark solitude of the wilderness. Winter, harsh as it was, wielded significant influence over the economic dynamics of the frontier. Trade routes, critical for the flow of goods and communication, were often slowed or rerouted by heavy snowfalls and ice-choked rivers. Yet, these very challenges prompted adaptive strategies that reshaped economic patterns and forged new connections. The economic interplay between supply and survival was woven tightly with the seasonal rhythms that dictated life on the frontier. Where rivers provided pathways in warmer months, once frozen solid, they became temporary highways. Sleds and sleighs carried goods and people across expanses that would have been treacherous in the soft slush of spring. Instead of hindrance, winter became an unlikely ally, facilitating mobility and commerce in unexpected ways. Musically clinking harnesses created soundscapes of their own, as traders ushered in goods and news across frozen distances, a winter orchestra playing briskly along a dazzlingly white stage. In these brisk exchanges, the demand for seasonal supplies reached its pinnacle. Fuel and firewood became hot commodities, metaphorically and literally, their presence deciding the degree of comfort or calamity within isolated homesteads. Furriers and tanners found ample business as communities clamored for warmth, with the latest pelts transformed into garments and blankets that promised protection against the relentless cold. By the fires, friendly banter might echo jokes about coats so thick they'd fool even the local bear into comradeship. Historians continue to debate how much of the West's economy relied on these informal systems of trade versus cash-based transactions indicative of developing infrastructure. While both coexisted, their synergies were crucial to frontier survival. The solitary barterer and formal merchant danced a delicate rhythm of necessity, ensuring the survival of their patrons through shared commerce. The economic patterns shifted with the challenges of winter, and so too did ingenuity flourish. Settlers crafted ice houses, storing nature's chill well past the thaw, selling blocks when summer's swelter came calling. Supplies stockpiled against scarcity burgeoned into trade opportunities, as items once set aside for the what-if now created viable avenues for bustling barter and profitable exchange. In this economy, foresight was its own currency, and the marking of future-led initiatives, no mere gamblite, was necessity, with potential for great reward. Beyond goods lay the broader spectrum of skills and services. Blacksmiths whose fires forged more than tools often turned into local heroes, their trade bolstering communities through harshest months. The simple act of repairing sled runners or sharpening blades became part of the intricate tapestry of survival, drawn as much in fortitude as in firelight abstractions. Even spiritual sustenance found economic echoes, with pastors and storytellers offering treasures of the heart that bolstered community morale. Their contributions to the economy were intangible, perhaps, yet essential in creating the bonds that nurtured both individuals and their livelihoods in ways numbers alone couldn't describe. Let these visions draw you into the bustling heart of a winter economy alive and thriving against a frozen canvas. Feel the hum of enterprise rendered vibrant against snowbound silence, and hear the subtle rhythms of trade and tradition resound beyond the present. With this narrative stitching a tapestry of commerce and camaraderie, advance further through the sequential stories of the West's resilience. Each step along this path journeys deeper into understanding, trailing whispers of economic dance etched brilliantly against history's enduring migrations, drawn toward encounters waiting patiently beyond shimmer-blessed horizons. Among the iconic figures etched into the lore of the Wild West, none stand taller than the legendary Cowboys. These rugged individuals, more than just myths in broad-brimmed hats, embodied the resilience and grit necessary to navigate winter's frigid hold. Imagine yourself riding alongside them, the jingle of spurs mingling with the haunting call of coyotes under a shimmering winter sky that stretched infinitely overhead. Even in the biting cold, the Cowboys lived by an unspoken code of endurance and fortitude. Life on the open range was synonymous with stoic perseverance. The image of these horsemen silhouetted against a mercurial horizon captures the imagination, yet their reality was painted with hardship, mingled with the unrivaled beauty of the untamed wilds. As winter settled in, cattle drives took on new urgency, herding vast numbers of cattle to safer, warmer pastures, tested both cowboy and beast. The seasonal shift dictated movement, a dance expertly executed under the constraints of time and weather. With expertise honed through experience, these cowboys guided reluctant herds across snow-covered plains, navigating icy streams and windswept prairies. Their relationship with their horses remained paramount companions in solitude, warmth, and journey alike. Each gallop through snowbound trails reflected a profound partnership, braving expansive stretches where shadows danced like wisps upon expanses of icy blanket. Historians still debate the romanticized vision of the cowboy against the often grueling daily grind, yet the reality resides in the testament of their legacy writ large across the landscape. The cowboy's survival toolkit reached beyond lassos and six-shooters to include a repertoire of strategies for combating the winter's edge. Layers of leather and wool became armor against the chill, while fireside circles offered camaraderie amidst shared meals of beans and biscuits, their warmth nourishing the spirit more than the belly. In these moments of reprieve, humor found hearty company. Tall tales of cantankerous cattle refusing to budge or mischief-loving calves with a knack for treacherous dives filled the air. A cowboy might lean lightly on his saddle, smirking as he described the rodeo ride that his mule had unwittingly taken him on, with just a touch of embellishment to assure laughter flowed alongside embers. Yet the cowboy's work wasn't confined to simply following the herd. The harsher winter months necessitated moves less nomadic, transitioning from vast prairies to homesteads, where maintaining order within confined spaces tested patience and creativity. Tending to the stable's routine offered structure against the amorphous whiteness of an unbound season. Every mended fence line, every tended animal provided stability and continuity. Moreover, the cowboys embraced technology that bridged their traditional undertaking with new era novelties. Telegraph lines became a lifeline, sharing messages tied to opportunity, weather, and a succinct assurance that kin remained well, distance denoting untold spans folded within static scribe wire. Here nestled another opportunity, the potential of evolving networks amid rugged landscapes. Beyond their immediate narrative, cowboys became embedded in the fabric of cultural mythos. They captured the spirit of adventure and the wonderment of a land perceived as boundless horizontal muse for storytellers, weaving tales of mavericks and heroes dancing beneath the icy grasp of Father Frost. Pause in these collective memories, where raw truths crisscross with imagined splendor, and let them paint a picture of resilience spun from both dream and determination. Within this reflection, Taste the grit and grandeur marking these looming sentinels of a storied epoch that defied time just as firmly as they weathered each season's unyielding touch. Let these echoes guide you through time's embrace, woke from their hallmarked place against history's horizon by trails of vibrant essence. The cowboy continues to ride into the unexplored realms of our shared journey, a tale as enduring as the land it traverses, vibrant as the legends that time's onward current carries with it, gently, imbidingly forward through each unwritten verse yet to be sung. As the Lowell sun dips below a horizon, etched with the silhouettes of mountain peaks and the boundless prairie, a sense of reflection settles over the land like a gentle snowfall. The tales spun through this long, winding journey across the snow-laden west illuminate the indomitable spirit that thrived against winter's stern embrace. Imagine now a world where each hardship gave rise to a new narrative, each challenge honed a sharper edge to resilience, and every moment of triumph became a shared whisper carried by the wind. As the cold of winter yields, however reluctantly, to the promise of spring, the mind lingers on the lessons born in frost. It is in the stories of those who endured that we find the essence of humanity, the ability to adapt, to find warmth not just in fire, but in the hearts and hands of fellow travelers. As this narrative finds its gentle close, encourage yourself to recognize the echoes of these lives in your own each moment of courage, laughter in the face of hardship, and the quiet dignity of shared humanity. The landscapes of the Wild West, with their stark beauty and formidable challenges, stand as monuments to the perseverance ingrained within every pioneer step. Sweet dreams.